It's a good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, he missed it! It is! Peterwell! Villa in the lead!
Good evening, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to the Villa Forever podcast. I am your host, Ted Williams. Please subscribe, and you can follow me on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Let's spread awareness of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This evening, I'm joined by my special guest, Josh, from the Absolute Football podcast, and he is a Liverpool fan. Also, Kevin Tyler, who is from the Villa Park podcast, will be on the show with us after a frustrating night in Belgium. Can Aston Villa bounce back? And we'll be previewing an away game at Anfield, which is going to be a big challenge and difficult ask. And Aston Villa take on Arne Slot's high-flying Liverpool, who are top of the pile in the Premier League and the Champions League as well. This is the match preview. Liverpool versus Aston Villa on Saturday at 8 PM kickoff. It's Saturday night under the lights. And as Aston Villa fans, we was very frustrated last night. And we lost the game in strange circumstances. It's great to have you on the show, Kevin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm a bit disappointed, like I'm sure all Villa fans are, about not just last night, but this recent sticky run of form. But great to be on the show and to finally sort of meet you, mate. So yeah, thanks for inviting me.
So let's talk about last night, the Champions League action. So it has been a hard week as well. Before that, because we lost Spurs 4-1 as well, we got thrashed. But the Club Brugge game, what's your thoughts from that?
Well, it felt like it was a bigger game than maybe it would normally have been because obviously of the, as you talked about, the Spurs defeat. Let's not forget before that, albeit a very changed team, didn't perform great against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup. And of course we threw away a 1-0, what should have been a comfortable home win against Bournemouth in the last minute, with a bit of sort of slack defending and, marking and giving away a silly free kick. So all of a sudden it feels like it's just kind of not gone for us. So it felt like last night, despite having 3 wins out of 3 and us being top of the pile and us having the chance to be, I think, the first English team ever to win their first 4 games in the Champions League. From what I saw, I mean, I'm actually now in hindsight quite pleased. My daughter had football training last night, so I was trying to watch it in between watching her. But it just looked like we were really lacking just any kind of intensity or ideas. And the best way I can kind of sum it up was something I remember the female co-commentator saying. I can't remember her name, but on the feed I had it on, where she said at the end of the first half about Bruges themselves, that the difference between Bruges' forwards and Villa's forwards is that they're moving the ball much quicker. And I think that just sums it up for me, is that it almost feels like it's now too slow, too predictable, and just lacking a bit of zip and a bit of passion.
Yeah, because I think at the moment we're going for a bad patch. But I think with Unai Emery, maybe a tactical tweak or something needs to be made because something's not working.
Yeah. I think that we've got the man for the job in terms of Unai Emery, and whenever we've had bad spells before, well, it says a lot about a Villa fan at the moment that we can't really think of many bad spells in our recent 2 years, obviously with having Mr. Unai in charge. There was, if you remember when I think we lost to Leicester, I think we lost to Spurs, maybe
That's it. I
lost to
remember that.
Arsenal. Yeah, the back end of that season we finished 7th. Last year, obviously, we tailed off a little bit, but you know we had some sticky spells. But we have to remember we've come back from some pretty bad defeats to then win
Yeah.
some pretty big games. You know, moving forward. So I do think there's a situation where we've got the guy in charge, but something's not right at the moment. And I think the thing for me, I think it's the forward players letting him down. Obviously, Watkins has got a
I
few goals,
agree.
but he's missed quite a few chances. Duran, when he starts, isn't the same level of player as he's an impact sub. And the wire players have been largely anonymous all
Yeah.
season.
And also, I don't mind. Yeah. Would you change the formation? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, Chad. I'll tell you what I wouldn't do for starters. I wouldn't have Duran and Watkins on the pitch at the same time.
It just don't work.
No, I wouldn't do that. I think Bailey's had his chance this season to find some form, and we need to look at something different there. And I was his biggest fan last season, despite being his biggest critic the season before. But loving him, but something's not working there. It almost also feels like we're not the same level of creativity
Yeah.
from the back as well. You know, obviously Power's been getting his critics for some of his defending, but I think he's the only one, it's seemingly, that can actually sort of play it progressively. And when Konza's right back, of course, we lose that attacking option as well. And I think
Yeah.
with Villa, hallmark of Emery teams, it starts from the back. Do you think other teams have worked us out? Do you think they are?
They are starting to, I think, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's maybe the issue, and it's that predictability now of Villa. Like, can we adapt beyond it? But I don't know whether maybe a midfield tweak. I actually think Kamara being back is a big thing for me, because I think Kamara can really solidify that midfield, and he looks like he's almost back to, you know, from what we've seen so far with a few appearances. I think he could be a big difference for us in terms of getting back to where we need to get to.
Well, last night, Bimkar Kamara, he was the best player on the pitch.
Yep.
And also, what I like about what he does, he does the dirty work really well. And also, in the back four, he shields the back four really well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually, I know he obviously had that absolute brain freeze, whatever you want to call it, you know, with Tyro Mings last night. But I do think that if Mings is back in the team, it gives us that. Now, obviously not every game, because we've got, you know, the squad
Oh,
to be
yeah.
able to rotate. But if you've got Mings in the team, you've got Kamara in the team, you've got Konza playing centre half, which is obviously where we want him to be. I think you've got that solidity then, which I think we're leaking a lot of goals, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a big concern. And
Yeah.
also, let's talk about as well. A moment of madness for Tyro Mings. What was he thinking?
There's a lot of theories out there. I think been doing the rounds. Did he think that the ball wasn't live? Did he think it had been thrown on the pitch by a bystander, or maybe one of the ball boys or ball girls?
Yeah.
I just don't think you can legislate for it. But the reality is that if you're a professional footballer,
Yes.
you know that you don't put your hands on the ball.
Yeah.
It's the inconsistency, though, isn't it? Because obviously the same thing happened. I think it was with Gabriel and
Arsenal game,
David
that was it, that, yeah.
Weah. Yeah, and the referee in that game said that, I think he said something along the lines of, we didn't want to penalise them for a kid's mistake, you know, in such an important game. Well, I don't know. Do you remember when Leeds scored that goal and Villa stopped, and then
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
yeah, I was crammed right at the back of the away end at Ellen Road. Like, couldn't just. It's almost as bad as being at West Ham away, but yeah, it was obviously the spirit of the game, wasn't it? And the spirit of the game was that they let us score. But the thing is, in football, if you get given a penalty sometimes when you know your man's dived, maybe or be looking for it, or maybe it was a really unlucky handball, you don't say, actually, you know what, I don't want the penalty. So I can understand why. There's been suggestions that maybe the Bruges should have missed it on purpose. Ridiculous. It's a big win for them. Villa players made a mistake. Stick it in the net. I tell you what disappointed me as well about it, and this is the thing that I wanted to really raise tonight. I did see from some of the post-match comments, a few people of the players, whatever I saw, kind of alluding to the fact that once they scored, that was almost the game done. You know,
Yeah.
you know, you're Aston Villa, top of the Champions League. who've been a swashbuckling, beating all comers, in the last 2 years, and you think at 1-0 down with half an hour to go that you don't think you can win that game. I think a top team
Yes.
takes that blow, which we've done actually this season with the likes of an Everton game or a Wolves game, and I think that maybe that points to me for a lack of confidence, perhaps a lack of a sense of actually they know they're not creating much, and our XG wasn't great at all last night. So maybe that one goal for them meant the heads dropped more than they normally would because they just thought, crikey, we're not going to get back into this.
And schoolboy errors and big mistakes are costing us games.
Yeah, it's absolutely happening in everywhere you look. I mean, obviously we talked about the Bournemouth one. We were lucky in hindsight the fact we did concede, goals to Everton, to Wolves early on. Ipswich, we were up against Ipswich, a newly promoted team, and we contrived to nearly lose that one. We were quite lucky. It's just, I think at the moment we're lacking ideas at the attacking end of the pitch, and we're weak. And the thing is, despite all of that, we're still in a good position in the league, and we're still in a good position in the Champions League. And I think that speaks volumes about obviously the level of the squad and the manager. But that is going to be something that if we don't address it and arrest that alarming lack of form and confidence soon, this season could end up literally out of nowhere being a bit of a damp squib. There's plenty of time left, but a lot of teams around, it's getting quite congested in that top half of the league, and we need to be showing what we're all about.
For the international break, that's come at a good time. So Unai can fix it. But I think though, if we lose to Liverpool side, and then we lose to Crystal Palace, then I'll start to worry then.
Well, I think it's officially a crisis then, isn't it, if you do that, because that'll be 5 in a row.
Yeah.
You can kind of write off the Palace one because it was a Carabao Cup, much change.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And let's be clear, anybody could be blown away by Spurs on it in one half. Anybody could. Yeah. And anybody could go away in the Champions League and maybe not get the best result. I've seen that. Obviously, Arsenal lost to Inter. I think Spurs are losing currently to Galatasaray right now in the Europa League. So, you can lose away in Europe. It's not a gimme of a thing. So we've got to look at, I think, with a little bit of context and a little bit of calmness. And Liverpool, as you said at the top of the show, top of the Champions League, top of the Premier League. So away 8:00 Anfield. It's not going to be easy at all. You can probably think that we might well lose that one with our form.
Yeah, we probably will lose that maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and then Palace is looking like an absolutely massive match, isn't it?
Palace game, then it becomes a must-win game at Villa Park then.
Yeah.
But if you notice this as well, I'm not criticising Unai Emery, but some of the players as well have been playing out of position. But Esri Cox has been playing at right back. But I think his best position is centre back. And maybe as well, we need to start Matty Cash.
Yeah, Villa are a better defensive team. The stats prove it when Matty Cash is in the team. And I just think from a balance perspective, I actually did think a few weeks ago that I would prefer, until we started shipping all these goals, I think I would have instinctively preferred Konza, Carlos, Torres, Digne, or Maatsen. But now more and more of this season's gone on, I think that now we need Konza back at centre-half. Definitely. I think we lose so much of him being a right-back. But if Cash is injured, then the question is, do you play Bogard or Nedeljkovic at right-back to keep the balance of the team? And that's a difficult one.
All right, let's welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you. Sorry I was late, chaps.
That's all right. Great to have the show, mate.
Did I miss the Tyrone Mings talk yet?
Yeah, luckily.
Luckily you did, yeah.
Yeah, we've moved on from that. We officially, you can't talk about that anymore now. We've moved on from it.
It's one of my favourite moments of football this week so far.
I bet it was, yeah. I hope that's your top moment of football this week, by the way, can I just say?
Sensational stuff.
So, Josh, I bet as a Liverpool fan, you must be very happy.
It's a good time to be alive at the moment. Yes, certainly. I think there's definitely been a nervousness at the start of the season, which helped temper expectations a little bit. But yeah, at the moment there's no real negatives, which is nice. It's certainly after going through such a big change in manager to be in a situation where things aren't going down the toilet or people are struggling like a lot of other teams that swap managers over. It's been really good. I've been thoroughly enjoying it.
And let's talk about Champions League action. And you beat Bayer Leverkusen 4-0 at Anfield. And I think for you, that's a great result. And also, Xabi Alonso. I mean, it's an emotional return for him.
Yeah, I mean, on Xavi being there, if I start there, which is it's really good to see. It's always good to see ex-players. I mean, Xavi Alonso is probably one of my favorite, along with Steven Gerrard, obviously. I'd have his children if I could. But Xavi Alonso is definitely one of my favorite midfielders that we've had. He's just his technique on the ball, his ability to pass. He could kick a ball up a gnat's ass from 50 yards away. He's just absolutely sensational and a pivotal player in the Istanbul final. So it was nice to see when the fans react well to him, which I wouldn't have anticipated anything else, to be honest. But the game itself, I mean, bearing in mind Leverkusen have lost 3 games in a season and a half, season and a quarter, shall we say, to go there and not just win, but just to comprehensively defeat them.
They won the Bundesliga last season.
Yeah, I think they did the double, the Bundesliga and the German Cup. Yeah, and then the final of the Europa League, which I think they narrowly lost. So it was fantastic game, and it's interesting to see as well the management of the team by making little rotations, little changes, keeping the defensive unit quite consistent, but in that midfield and attacking positions, being able to mix it up and bringing Luis Diaz. I think it's the first time he's played through the middle for us, and he scored his first professional hat-trick. So it worked.
So what are you expecting for the Liverpool game on Saturday, Josh? What are you expecting?
Do you know what? It's changed a little bit from the tail end of last season and the start of this season. The form at Aston Villa. I mean, we are on the Absolute Football Podcast on Mondays. We were discussing Aston Villa, and we all have predicted them to finish quite highly. Last season, I will say, Charlotte on the pod actually had you guys. She predicted you were going to finish either 4th or 5th, I think. So she had seen something in Emery that maybe not everybody else saw. But I think, for me, I do have a bit of a soft spot for Aston Villa. My nephew actually played for Aston Villa for about 2 years, but yeah, between the age of 7 and 9, he's been played for Aston Villa. But and I quite like. I've always liked the club. I used to like old Bozzy back in the day, showing my age a little bit. What a player, and old McGrath and. Who is it? You had another. There was another left back that you had there whose name is. It might have been, yeah. Little solid Steve, a little unit. But
you on about Alan Wright?
No, it's definitely Steve Staunton. I'm thinking of. And I used to quite like him when you had Dwight York, and then there was another striker that used to play up with him. Again, name escapes me because I'm going back like 30 years. Maybe.
Yeah, we had Dean Saunders, Dalian Atkinson,
Southern Miltonich.
Dean Saunders, Welsh legend, right? Yeah. Not so much on the commentary these days, perhaps. No. But as a player, he was great. But it's been really nice to see the resurgence of Aston Villa, and I do have a bit of a soft spot for you guys. I think you seem to be really well run with a plan, with sensible owners. And I do rate Emery, but it seems to have gone. The worst performances have been in the last sort of 5-6 games that I've probably seen of you from a good spell of time. So I think coming to Anfield on a run of not brilliant form, probably is going to be a bit of frustration after your game against Bruges during the week. I'm not feeling too ambitious for you guys, to be honest. So if I was to put a number to it, I would probably say you could be looking at a 3-1 for Liverpool, I think.
Well, I'm worried about this guy personally, from a Villa point of view. I'm expecting a tough task. As we know, at Anfield, it's a tough place to go to. And not many teams get results there. I think you might have it now at Anfield. It's a real fortress.
Yeah, my dog just trying to come in then. Yeah, no, it's been for a long time. Now probably for a good couple of seasons. I mean, Klopp did an awful lot for the club, and he's another man. If I could hold another man close to my body, it'd be Gerrard and Jurgen Klopp these days. But what he did create that a better mentality and brought the fans along for the first time in a while. And Slot at the moment, even though he hasn't got that same engagement with the fans, he's getting results, and he's really speaks really well. He seems tactically very astute, and he's bringing the fans along now. And we're getting used to that style of play change that he's implementing, and it's really positive. And what I think we've liked is he's so decisive in his changes, and then in the second half he seems to make a change, and once we've sussed somebody out, we go for it, and I think that's built up a lot of excitement. And I think you'll start to see better and better atmospheres at Anfield from what it was at the start of the season, and it's going to make it harder and harder to perform there. And I think the team has got that spirit left over from the Klopp era, but the fans are now sort of coming along. And I'd probably say this is a really bad time to want to come and play in Liverpool at Anfield at the moment. Sorry.
Can bet as well. I bet a lot of my United fans, I bet they wished that they had Arne Slot.
I think secretly they might, but every United fan I speak to, they've, as always, they've got the greatest manager in the world at that period of time joining them now. It doesn't matter who it is, that's who they've got. But I sort of feel for United fans. Only a little bit.
They're in now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is a manager, regardless. I know people sort of make fun and stuff about, he got rejected by all of these clubs, but it wasn't him that got rejected. All the clubs wanted to speak to him. Liverpool, Bayern Munich. It was the package. It was a big package, 10 million to buy him out. Plus, you got to think he's brought along 6 members of staff, I think, which means you've got to bring him in, pay the 10 million, bring him in on his wages, 6 members of staff on their wages, buy all of them out of their contracts. Plus, then the likelihood is you might have to get rid of some of your own coaches, that's a massive expense. And to be fair, I think fiscally, United are the only club that are sort of run with an element of, if we got to spend it, we got to spend it. So he's a good manager. I think they should be happy to have him. It'll take a bit of time because the Premier League's a bit of a beast, and it's certainly a leap up from Portugal. But it'll be nice to see a resurgent United at a level. As long as they resurge from 13th to about 6th, I'll be all right with that. 6th, 5th. That'll do. That's enough.
And Kevin, going back to the guy. What do you expect from this guy on Saturday?
Is this a family show? It's a family show, isn't it? I gotta be careful what I say. Do you know what? I fancy Villa against anybody in the last 2 years. You talk about Emery and Josh. You mentioned obviously your the person you work with who predicted Villa for top 4. I called it last season at the start of last season. I said we finished top 4 based on what I'd seen from Emery and what I knew about Emery, and I was absolutely delighted to cash in a tiny little bet I put on it and see it happen. So I look at, a lot of people forget this about Villa. We beat Man City and Arsenal, the top 2 teams last season, back to back in consecutive games last season with 2 clean sheets. We've had some big scalps. We beat Arsenal home and away. We're the reason Arsenal didn't win the league last year. 6 points, which they don't forget. So Villa could go anywhere on any day and beat anybody. But you're top of every league that you're in. Premier League, the Champions League, probably the local badminton league if they're in that as well. So, and we are in our worst run of form, but we also have to have a little bit of context to it. There's another team out there that have lost 3 games in a row, and they're a club, you might have heard of them, called Manchester City. They lost to Sporting 4-1, they lost to Spurs in the Carabao Cup, and then they lost to Bournemouth in the league. And they only got a narrow, they got a narrow one unconvincing 1-0 win against Southampton the game before, and they struggled in that game a bit. So do we all think that City have lost it? The thing is with Villa is, if I'm going to be really true to myself, as much as I believe in the club, I think we could do anything, and I think we've got a chance of getting a result. Everything points towards us getting beaten by a few goals, and I think your 3-1 is probably a fair sort of prediction. I've predicted on a little results prediction league that I'm in. I've actually predicted 4-0 to Liverpool, which reminds me of the days when we were circling the plug hole of the Premier League about 7-8 years ago, and when we were just maybe a bit longer than about 10 years ago, and we were rubbish. I don't have. This is the least confident I've been into going to a game as an Aston Villa fan under Emery. And would you believe it? It's my first time ever I'm going to Anfield this Saturday. So,
well, good luck to you.
Yeah, hopefully I'm a good luck charm. Basically, I hope I am.
It's a late game. Is it 8 o'clock kickoff?
Strange time.
I'll be past my bedtime. That is.
Well, I'm taking my lad. He's 10, and he's absolutely for Christmas present early, and he's absolutely over the moon to be going.
Having a great time.
Oh yeah, well I'm 43. I know I don't look it, thanks, right? But I've never been to Anfield, and he's 10, and he's going so he's living the dream. I just hope we've got a good record with him. He's seen us lose to Brighton away, but he's seen winners. 87th minute against Leicester when Traore bent that one in, beating Middlesbrough. That was a good one. He's seen that one as well when Kashi scored in the FA Cup. So he's seen a few wins on his away days. I just hope he's a good luck charm. But the way Liverpool are playing, you mentioned Diaz, but it's not just Diaz, is it? It's everybody else. Curtis Jones has been absolutely inspired this season. Gravenberch has been brilliant. You've obviously got your defenders are always good. Keepers, whoever you have, are always good. Let's not talk about the fullbacks. So what about Mo Salah? You've got options absolutely everywhere, and we are vulnerable at the back and a bit insipid in attack, and that is not a good combination when you're going to Anfield.
Well, I think on the game, Liverpool don't like possession. We need to frustrate them. I think defending numbers behind the ball, and you lost to Nottingham Forest, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was one early in the season. To catch them on the break.
It's a result that Slot keeps going on about. I think he mentioned it a few times. I think that hurt him. I mean, the only solace I've taken from it is they are in the top 4 now, so they're not. It's not a bad Nottingham Forest side, and it's early days for Liverpool as well. There's still, if you're gonna, I think if Aston Villa are gonna stand a chance, they need to go at it in the first half, early doors, because the way Slot sort of played is he's trying to be quite slow and controlled. So I look at most of the game, we don't have the majority of the possession in any game now, which is flipped from when we had Klopp here. But what it meant is we were a bit more in control, but everything's a little bit slower. When in the games where we haven't performed as well, it's always in the first half against Brighton, against Nottingham Forest, and the game against Arsenal. It's always in the first half where we're a bit slower, but then he'll make a change in the second half and we're a different team all of a sudden. So I think if Villa's got a chance, it's that first half. You've got to come out all guns a-blazing, really.
Another thing as well, there's a lot of players to be aware of. But Alexander-Arnold, I mean, he's got great vision. He likes to switch to play. And as well, he's set piece threat.
Yeah, I totally agree, and he's being rested all the time. One thing Slot's doing is almost every game, the last 15-20 minutes, he's bringing both full-backs off, so he's giving them a bit of a rest, so he's not getting as tired. And I think I've had a real bee in my bonnet for the last couple of years of people going on about Trent. He's not very good defensively, which I think is, I'll keep it a family show. That's not accurate to reality, because he's always been a good defender. But the issue was with Klopp's formation, we were very high, and he's always cutting in and sort of, instead of being a right back, he's sort of a more of a hybrid midfielder, if you like, and coming on the right.
What position do you like?
He's a right back from, and you're seeing it now. He's a right back, and because he's back a bit more now, he's not pushing up so high. He's not getting caught out by a ball over the top because he's where he needs to be. But he's still able, as you said, switch the play, create assists, whip some beautiful balls in, and he's like, even though he's playing further back, it's almost like he's got more freedom and more attacking prowess than he had when he's sort of bombing up under Klopp.
And as well, at Liverpool, they're a high pressing team. They like to press really high. And they win the ball back really quickly, which is something I worry about.
And when we've got it, we're much more patient with it as well now. So when we have picked the ball up, it's a slightly slower play, and they'll play it across, which I think has benefited, like Gravenberch and Curtis Jones, and McAllister is just a fabulous midfielder, full stop.
Yeah.
But it means they're able to have a bit more thought before they actually go for something. And then most of the time, then the final ball they release is more often than not the right ball, rather than sending it out and then losing it and having to panic to win it back all the time. It's a much more measured game.
And we need to take more control. Got a Yuri Tielemans. It's going to be important for Villa in this game, I think.
Yeah, I think our midfield generally needs to really perform on Saturday.
It's important.
Yeah, Josh makes a good point about a fast start. Josh, you might not necessarily know this, probably not taking as much attention to Villa as say Chad or I do, but under Emery in the first probably few months of his reign, we were synonymous with the fast start. So many goals in the first 15 minutes of the game. I think we had the best record in the Premier League for that. I mean, when we beat Man United, by the way, we never beat Man United. We've beaten Man United, as many times as Santa comes a year, basically. Like, if literally terrible for us. And we beat him in his first match in charge, and we were 2 up within the first 15 minutes. We've seemed to have lost that. We've lost that swashbuckling initial get at them thing. So I think that'll be important, but the midfield's going to be key. And we've got some good assets in now with Onana, Tielemans, Kamara being back. Obviously, I don't think Barkley will be quite available for it, but you've obviously got Jacob Ramsey, John McGinn. You've got some good players in the midfield area. It's going to be a key battleground on Saturday.
Do you think Morgan Rogers as well? He's very direct, very good ball carrier as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for him to show he's gone off the ball a little bit the last few games, like a lot of them have. It's if there's ever an opportunity to show what you're all about. Yeah, interestingly with Rodgers, he didn't get in the England squad today, and a lot of people tipped him to get in there. And he's been obviously great this season. What a progression from him as someone that was getting largely, when we signed him, there was a lot of people saying, that we've had a bad deal, and there was a few people on X particularly saying that Villa have been absolutely done over here. So for him to come on and be as great as he's been in terms of the ball carrying potential and skills that he's shown has been wonderful. But if you want a platform to show what you're all about when your back's against the wall, 8 o'clock under the lights at Anfield, live on Sky Sports, is the chance to do that. And if there's ever a manager in, I'd say, the world football that you'd back to get a result in any game at the moment, I think he's up there probably with a Pep or a Klopp, isn't he? Unai Emery, in terms of his ability to do it.
And also, only Watkins need more support.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. When Bailey's playing well, the tandem obviously with Bailey and Watkins. I know Rodgers and Watkins have linked pretty well, but it's not happening as much. And what are the options really to put in there? Philogene not done much in an attacking sense. Ramsey, he's not quite at the form he was maybe a year or so ago. So yeah, he has cut a bit of an isolated figure. And of course, Watkins this season seems to have been missing a few more chances than he's scored, albeit he scored 5 or so goals. Yeah, we just seem to really
Really,
latch on.
it's been very isolated.
Yeah, he has. He has, and that's why if you flip him out for Duran can maybe create a moment of magic out of nowhere, but you can't do that all the time. It's not going to happen every game.
So, Josh, as a Liverpool fan, what have you made of Arne Slot?
Do you know what? I didn't pass judgment on him when he joined, so I don't like to cast aspersions too early. I wouldn't say I was underwhelmed. I was reserved on his appointment because I know he done well with Feyenoord, but everyone does well in Holland with certain teams and then goes somewhere else and turns into absolutely nothing. So I was a little bit reserved. As I said at the start, I knew his style of play was slightly slower, and I thought that could be a good thing for the squad in that because I think we just burnt out under Klopp. There was so much energy and we peaked, and then people just seemed to get tired. We had a lot more injuries. We conceded in the first half so often. I wouldn't check results if I wasn't watching him. I wouldn't check results until about the 60th minute because I thought we're gonna be losing. So there's just no point getting myself all worked up and upset about it. But what I've liked, he's not changed loads, just little bits. He's just like I said, drop that high line a little bit, slow the pace down, and he's made the game more sustainable for all the players. I mean, what he's done to Salah is blown my mind a little bit, and that he's slowed the game a little bit more, and it becomes a bit more structured in the formation. Seems to giving him a bit more freedom and enjoyment. He's put Gakpo on the left wing, which he's a left winger. So he's sort of thriving there. So he's made some really smart decisions and his tactics seem to be spot on. But the biggest thing, I'll be honest, that I really love is his brutal honesty. So when we're playing bad, he'll say we played. And against the Brighton game, especially, what I loved was he came out and he said, first half, Brighton were really well. They played really well. They were a really good team. They deserved to be ahead. And they were really impressive. And we weren't very... He didn't just say we were rubbish. He put praise on them and said that they did well, and then acknowledged that we didn't play well, and then he made that changes. So I've been pretty pleased at the moment. I'm not one of those, I'm not expecting him to win anything this season. It'd be lovely, and we'll see what happens at Christmas. I might start to get a bit excited in January if we get through the Christmas period, and if City continue having a bit of a slide, which I'm sure everybody hopes that they do because they've only got about 10 fans, and so the majority of people don't want them to perform very well, and it'd be nice to see someone doing a bit better. I think Arsenal are going to have another couple of wobbles, and I think it'll be an
what about City? They lost to Bournemouth 2-1.
They're a good team, aren't they, though?
They've done well. Iriona's done a good job there.
And that's something I've loved this season, especially is seeing Bournemouth, Fulham, yourselves, Brighton, teams at Nottingham Forest as well, so not to forget them. So a lot of teams that haven't done well for the last couple of seasons, but they've been really solid. And I said on the podcast Monday, actually, it's making the Premier League look a bit more like whereas in the past it's been Liverpool and City with a team full of stars playing outstanding stuff. The league seems a bit more like good football, lots of teams playing as teams, playing some good football and competing, and everyone's competing. I've really enjoyed that. But no, to answer your question, I'm very happy with Slot so far. And I'll still, even if he tails off and the season doesn't end particularly well, I've seen enough that I think he's got my backing. It's just hopefully that the club backs him and stops messing about with players' contracts, spends money at some point. And
Arne Slot, he sort of took over for Jurgen Klopp, and he's continued his good work. Because really, with Jurgen Klopp, there's going to be big shoes to fill with his legacy he left at Anfield. But of the Arne Slot, he's getting the most out of his team, and he's getting them to perform the high standards that he wants.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's making players that didn't have fabulous seasons. I mean, like Gravenberch last season, people were slating him like no one's business. Curtis Jones has been sort of one of those players that have been dug out quite consistently. In the centre back, I mean, Kanate was one that was being hit and miss, and I
Well,
think
in Liverpool, they're very solid at the back.
yeah, which
They're
and
not
what I
scoring.
Yeah, and what I liked is Kanate's having the best season, I think probably of his career. But when he wasn't, then we brought Joe Gomez in last week when Kanate had to go off. He was just solid, had a really good, solid game. The only thing that and Allison gone out injured, and Keller's come in, and he looks like the world's greatest number 2. The only slight concern I've got has been at left back a little bit, in that Robertson's form's dropped a little. I wouldn't say he's been bad, but it's dropped a bit. And Tsimikas is what he is. He's a good player. So it's sort of like where their standard was really high up here, it sort of dropped a little bit. So it's still good, but it's not as it was. And that's the sort of only weak spot. But I think their defensive solidity, though, also has come from a slower pace game and a slightly lower line to give everybody a bit of a chance to actually defend instead of just thinking, oh my God, there's a ball coming over the top. We've all got to leg it like maniacs.
And Liverpool, they've been a joy to watch. I mean, they play an exciting brand of attacking counter-attack football. And also, they have added a bit more quality to the squad.
Yeah, and he's made those changes to certain players, and he's brought them out to themselves a bit. Like I've mentioned Gravenberch already, and I think McAllister, Curtis Jones, and we've got the rotation. I think when Harvey Elliott comes back as well, I think the way that the formation and the way the slot plays is really going to favour him, and he'll be a great player as well for us. He'll be like a new player when he comes back eventually.
And he makes a few tactical tweaks. And he can change it around. And what he seems to do seems to be working for him.
Yeah, I think he might have the benefit of the fact that he's a new manager and it's going to take people a bit of time to work him out. But he's all that even though the formation's roughly the same, the players in that formation he's sort of tweaked and played around with who's going to be placing where, who's going to be going where. So he's made little moves, but it's the tactical changes in the second half that he seems to just. He reminds me a little bit like, Sam Allardyce used to be up in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit, feels like Slot watches the game from a distance and just assesses it in the first half and then comes down and says, right, this is what we've got to do to change the game in the second half. And doing things like making changes at half time, I love that. If it's got to be done and you do it, and I like that decisiveness. And it's surprised me.
Kevin, what have you made of Arne Slot?
I think he's done tremendously well. I think that the thing that's impressed me so far, and look, Josh has obviously, alluded to this. It's early doors, and as we've seen with, 2 of last season's top 4, I'm going to take slight umbrage at you chucking us in there with Fulham's and Forest because I think we were a bit better than them. Yeah, but no, I get the point. A team that haven't been around that kind of top of the league for a bit. We did it obviously last season, so I'm semi joking. But you've only got to look at the 2 almost dynasty managers of the last 20 years in Wenger and Ferguson, right? And Wenger was succeeded by Emery, and look how that turned out. It was difficult to follow a manager like that for that amount of time. David Moyes, we all know what happened with him. Tried to change too much too quickly. And let's not forget, though, that was an Arsenal team that was on the wane, and that was a Man United team that was very much like on its last legs, and he somehow got a league title out of them based on what a manager he was. Whereas this isn't a Liverpool team on the wane, so we've got to make that point. I think you've phenomenally moved on from the era when you had Gerrard, Coutinho, all those players, to then obviously get the players now. And even then, Firmino goes, he's still replacing him with players. So you've done that really well. But still, you've got to follow Klopp. Klopp was an absolute force of nature. I think football fans, I mean, I used to give him a bit of grief for his constant moaning about kick-off times, you know.
I mean,
But
all I know about him is I like Jurgen Klopp's passion.
yeah. You remember that very first game when he said, I won't swear, but he said effing Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
That first loss. I just loved the raw sort of honesty around that. And I think no matter what you think, you know, I'd say he was whinge a little bit at times about stuff, but God, they all do it, don't they? But he did a phenomenal job against a Man City team with all their 115 charges and still do what he did. To follow that was going to be a difficult task for anybody. You got to have some kahunas to take it on, to take on that role itself. And I think he's done great. He's really seems like quite calm, quite relaxed, quite at ease with the fans, with the press, and the players are playing for him. There's no doubt about it. And you know what? I think you probably will invariably have a sticky spell at some point. I'm looking at your fixtures actually before the pod, and I know the start of December is going to be tricky. You got Man City at home, obviously Anfield at the start. You got Newcastle away, then you got Everton away. So you know. I mean, I know Everton's an easy 7-0 win these days, but
it's the last Merseyside derby at their stadium. I forget the name of their stadium because I don't care. It's the last Merseyside derby at their place. So you'd like to think their fans would be up for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And look, you know, no game in the Premier League's easy, and you know, you're only a couple of defeats away from a crisis at this level of football. You know, we're talking a bit negatively as Villa fans here, and yet we're still actually in a really good position in the league. You know, we could have gone third if we'd beat Spurs, and we lost to Spurs. Not a terrible result. Spurs could beat anybody. You know, we're still sixth in the league, level on points with Arsenal and Chelsea, and we're still on 9 points in the Champions League after 4 games. Anyway, we're all like, oh my God, crisis, because the levels of expectation are so high now. And I guess that's what it comes with wanting to be a big club and to get everything that comes with that is you got to perform. If you don't perform, there's another taxi in the rank waiting to come along and take it. And that's the thing we've got to be mindful of, is that we need to keep our position there. And yeah, it's a tough thing to do. So huge credit to Liverpool in terms of what Slot's done. And do you know what as well? You're a good team to watch. Play some nice football. It's nice to see as a non, you know, as a obviously not a fan of Liverpool, but you've got that blend of youth in such as Jones. I think you mentioned obviously Harvey Elliott. I think he's done really well.
Curtis Jones, he's developed really well.
Yeah, he's been great, isn't he?
Over the last few years. Did he start in lockdown? Did he or something? When he made his first start.
I think so. He sort of come up. There was a couple of them, a couple of players at the same time that sort of come up, and and it was around the time as well. I think we had a bit of a defensive nightmare, so we had loads of young players sort of all bedding in at the same time, and he was a bit like a weird utility player that you didn't quite know what he was all about. But I'm with you. I'm relieved he's developed in the way, because you want him to, as a homegrown boy, you want him to perform well. But there's a period of time where you thought, you just don't know. But yeah, some of his play recently, I'm really glad. I mean, social media is a bit of a cesspool at the best of times, but I was really glad to see that he's sort of shoving it to some of the naysayers and people are giving him abuse.
I remember that time as well, where we beat you 7-2. Watkins hat trick.
That was was that COVID that happened?
Yeah, with no fans in the stadium, yeah.
It still counts because you were the league in COVID. So
I'm not discounting it at all. I just remember it stood out. I can't remember why. I might have been out walking the dog or something.
You weren't supposed to be out, Josh. No, I'm joking. You're supposed to be in your house. It's the last time we've beat you. And that's how long ago it was. It was COVID, and no fans in the stadium. And you were reigning Premier League champions, and we had this most magnificent win, and not a single Villa fan other than a few people in the press saw it live.
Watkins hat trick and Jack Grealish. He was the man of the match. He was incredible as well.
Yeah, he did a dirty nutmeg on Van Dijk, I think, at one point to put Barkley in. We just everything we touched turned to goal. Then Ollie Watkins, his first ever goals in the Premier League as well, and he got a hat trick.
It was amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about goals. we're talking about Mo Salah. So I'm going to get this graph on the screen to show his stats. But before I ask you that, I was going to say, do you think Salah is one of the best Premier League strikers in history? And why is he so important to Liverpool?
You know, what I quite like. He's probably one of the best strikers for a right winger in Premier League history. I think because he's a hybrid, and because of the way that we played, he's not an out and out winger. He is more of a I don't know. I couldn't place him. Or you pull him on the right wing, but most of the time he does pull in, and he's like the modern day right sided striker. But yeah, I'd say he has to be in regards to his consistency. You can see the consistency of his goals and his XG there, and the way that he performs.
Yeah.
Considering the player he was at Chelsea, and then obviously went away to Roma, did some development there, but he brought him back, and the player he's become has just been outstanding. And he's like 32. I think he's about 32, and he's
32.
very. And he's got a six-pack to die for. The man's in tremendous physique. He really makes me quite jealous. Beautiful hair. I'd love to have hair like that, or hair full stop. It's quite luscious. But I think as a player, he has to be considered at these very Thierry Henry-esque. I think in regards to his technique and he just creating things.
I mean, he's up there. He's up there. The likes of Ernie Haaland, Watkins, Aguero, Thierry Henry, Alan Shearer, Wayne Rooney. He's in that category.
Yeah, and I think for Liverpool, what I think goes, people don't always see, because you don't see unless you watch him play, but he's always moving. And I think the reason why he's done so well, for why he's been so integral, is because he's always moving. He's wearing people down, and people are always having to be weary of where he is and what he's doing. So your left back is always tied up and focusing on him, but then he'll drag your left centre back out, or you might drag one of your left-sided midfielders out. So people are being pulled towards him because of how dangerous he is and the technique that he's got. But he's got the energy and fitness levels that he just keeps going. I mean, and you look at the matches played there, he doesn't get injured very rarely, touch wood. He's always there, and he's always got energy. And I don't think he's a selfish player. I think as a striker, you need to take those shots. And it was one of the things I actually like with Ollie Watkins is he'll take the shot on. Even sometimes people might go, "Oh, I should have passed that." You take the shot on because he's a striker. You want to score a goal, but he'll pass when it's right to pass. If he thinks he can score,
That's why he's got so much pace. And now, though, his preferred position, he plays on the right winger now.
Yeah.
More as a central striker.
I think look to back up those numbers from coming in from the right hand side, and his assists as well. It's just superb, and I think he was disrespectful this year. The fact that he wasn't Ballon d'Or nominated, I think he was. I think one of the African Players of the Year, he wasn't nominated for that either. And I think is absolutely bonkers that he doesn't get the sort of recognition. And his contract status sort of worries me a little bit. And I think the biggest problem is we've got our three biggest earners all up for the same. I mean, what lunatic runs a club? Allow three of your best players and biggest earners to all be renewed at the same time when you've got a financial structure that we have at the club where they don't want to rock it too much. So that's a by the by. But I think he's worthy of being Liverpool's highest ever player. And as I say, it's just his pace and energy.
Is Liverpool legend?
I rightly think so. I mean, you look how long he's been, how many seasons he's done now. And he's been integral in the best moments of the last decade. You know, he's there, and we've been blessed with some fabulous strikers, in the recent years, just, when we've had Luis Suarez and bless his heart for a couple of seasons, Daniel Sturridge gave it a right good go, but Fernando Torres, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, King Kenny, he's definitely up there. And yeah, I think when he goes, it'll be a sad day, and I think outside of Liverpool, he'll start to be held in more of a regard. But I think in the club, everybody sees what
Because
he
you
is.
know, Salah, has he had links to the Saudi League? There's rumours going around.
He has been, and I think because for the start, they're probably one of the few leagues that can afford to pay his salary. That he's going to demand to go out there, and because he's the face of that region, he's a sort of face of football over there. I mean, he's the best Egyptian player probably of
Oh,
all
yeah,
time, certainly
true.
one of the most famous, and which comes with his own implications. I mean, you can sort of whisper it. It's very much an authoritarian country out there, and which is why he probably doesn't speak out much because of because of safety reasons. But he's certainly a face of football out in that region in the Middle East, and I think they would want him to. And he's the type of person he is. He would probably want to help develop football in that area. But I think he's sort of intimated
Yeah.
and said to people that he still thinks he's got another good couple of seasons in him to play at this top level. And he could still do a job. I think he could still do a job at Liverpool. I think my understanding is his contract situation. They've offered him 2 years. He wants 3
Yeah.
at about the same sort of money. Which, if we're squabbling over 12 months, I think I'd drive up to Liverpool and probably backhand Michael Edwards myself if it's a sake of 12 months for our best, probably our top 2 or 3 player of the Premier League era.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, what do you make of those stats?
He's just an unbelievable, hasn't he, Salah? I think if you consider, like also Kevin De Bruyne, being at Chelsea about 10 or so years ago, not breaking through. People thought was he going to be another one of those players. I remember Mateo Kezman came, being really highly rated, didn't do much. Adrian Mutu, highly rated, didn't really do much. We all thought Salah might be another one of those players. As you say, went to Roma, sort of, found himself a little bit. He's been incredible, hasn't he, in the Premier League era for Liverpool, and seemingly keeps on going. I think most clubs would be cautious about giving a contract to take someone to be 35, 36, but
Yes.
you've only got to look at what some of the top players, in world football have done in terms of their longevity. Benzema and Messi, and Ronaldo, and Lewandowski. There's
Yeah,
plenty of
and as well,
Luka Modric as
he's
well.
a nightmare to play against.
Oh, he is. I mean, in that 7-2 that we talk about, I remember quite clearly that he scored both Liverpool's goals, both brilliant finishes.
Yeah, he did.
Great finisher, power, pace. You can obviously see that his consistency as well with that stat. So, yeah, I would love to be sat here. We'll have to do this again in 5 or 6 years, Chad, when Ollie Watkins has
Oh,
hopefully
yeah.
got a record.
Yeah. Also, I know Salah, his record speaks for itself. I mean, when we look at Liverpool, he scores important goals for them. In the big games, he's always consistent. And not only is the goals he scores, you look at his assist record and his goal involvements, and he always use it, his pace, going past defenders.
Yeah, totally. He's just everything for what you want as an attacking player. He's just got the full package, and he's tremendously handsome to boot as well. So
Yeah,
I couldn't be more jealous of him.
beautiful hair, lovely hair.
Well, we're going close to the end of the podcast. So how will Liverpool line up against Aston Villa? And Josh, who should you watch out for?
How we're gonna? It's difficult to tell at the moment because Klopp keeps changing. Slot back in the past. Then Slot he does. I know he keeps changing that midfield. The defensive line I think will be quite solid. It'll be Keller, Trent Canate, Big Verge, and Tsimikas, I imagine, left back. McAllister and Gravenberch, I imagine, will be playing.
Yep.
I think he brought Curtis Jones off and brought Szoboszlai on against Leverkusen, and you can't tell whether that's to vest Curtis Jones for this game, or
Yeah.
to get Szoboszlai back in ready for this game and rest him. I've got. Ordinarily, I would have said Szoboszlai would start and Curtis Jones will come off the bench, but that performance from Jones might have changed that. But so that's the only place I'm not too sure about. But then I imagine you'll have Nunes.
I'll tell
in
you
the
what,
centre.
Nunes is very effective. I mean, really, like, he's a real handful. And physically, he's strong.
He's an animal, isn't he? I think he's like he's like when you become a father and you've got your kids and you got the one little boy who's just running around everywhere bumping into things. He's a little bit like that. You're like, oh, bless him. You have to like pick him up and don't run into the wall. This is where you need to be. He's a little bit like that. But I think what has been happening, he's becoming a bit more. I think starts trying to calm him down a little bit and talk to him a little bit more. I think he could become. I think he's already a bit of a fan favorite, but he can become a justified fan favorite with the stats to back him up, because he is a nightmare, and I think he occupies your defenders, because of his movement and how big and how strong he is. He'll occupy your defenders there, and then when we'll have Gakpo out on the left and Salah on the right, it's this difficult front three to deal with,
And Kevin, what should our tactics be on Saturday as well?
I think our tactics should be get down on our knees and put our hands together and pray, and just keep doing that the whole game. Now, yeah, no, I think for me, I think a key thing is going to be control of the midfield. Yeah, I think trying to nullify obviously Trent, but Trent's not the only weapon they've got in terms of obviously keeping that ball going and obviously moving it around. But if we can win that midfield battle and try and maybe assert ourselves on a game a bit more than we have this season, solidity is going to be key, which is why I wouldn't have Konza at right back if that's possible. I don't know with Kashi's fitness, and yeah, we need big performances. I think we need. I would look at it actually potentially and maybe play a double pivot, which we don't think we've done this season so far. But maybe now we've got the options. Maybe an Arne and a Kamara could be a good shout to give us a bit more solidity.
And the big thing that we need to do is concentration.
Yeah,
we need to focus for 90 minutes, which is difficult against Liverpool.
Yeah, it'd be useful to try not to pick up the ball with your hands in the box as well. If you're
that's no madness. That was.
If you're not wearing the goalkeeper's jersey, I always remember this when I play football: is don't put your hands on the ball in the penalty area, anywhere really, but particularly there. Yeah,
I felt sorry for him because you could tell like he was obviously where his head was at, but the poor little lamb. I just thought that because he's a player. I mean, he's sort of for me when as a non-Aston Villa fan,
yes,
Tyrone Mings is one of those players that you think of as an Aston Villa player.
Just come back from injury.
Yeah. Well, it was his first ever game in the Champions League.
Yeah. Oh, God. Not a great start.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Bless him. I actually didn't think he played that bad. And I don't think he was that bad against Palace. I went to the Palace game when that was his first start, wasn't it? But no, I think he'll be valuable for us. But definitely, I think he'll start. You don't know actually with Emery.
And it was a schoolboy error.
Yeah, it was poor. I can imagine it'll be Pau Torres back in there. I can imagine.
100%. Yeah, and Matty Cash at right back. I think as well, Kamara. And maybe Onana, maybe.
Yeah, I think that could be the one really. Maybe with I think if you look at that formation, what it lets you do is then play Tielemans maybe a bit further forward, and then you can put Rodgers where Bailey is, because at the moment Bailey's just not doing anything. And then I'll maybe have Ramsey on the other side, and obviously Ollie Watkins through the middle.
Yeah. So the final question. So Josh, do you think Liverpool win the Premier League?
I'm not allowed to say as a Liverpool fan. Our official party line is one game at a time. I think right now I don't know. I think the way that we're playing, I could see us winning every game that we play.
We got a chance.
Yeah, I think that, as we said, the December run will be a big determining factor. And to be honest, I don't normally look at table positions until you reach sort of 13 to 15 games, and then I think that's when you can really start to make a judgment. I would say, do I think we will? I don't know. I think we could. I think there is that potential there, but I don't mind. It's at the moment, just as long as we keep playing as we are, I'm enjoying it and I'm happy, and I'm not going to put that expectation on
Well, you got
or
that Man
jinx
City
myself.
and Arsenal as well. There were a few slip-ups.
I know it's very exciting. I mean, you look over the last couple of seasons. If you lose 3 games, you're not winning the league, and Arsenal and City are both not far off that at the moment. It's exciting times.
I think prior to our little poor spell Villa, I'm the most optimistic Villa fan. You probably wouldn't know it from this. I'm a little bit deflated by our recent form, but I honestly think that anything's possible in this league. I think City are not the team that they were. I think these charges hanging over them are weighing a bit heavier now. And I think, let's be clear, the Ballon d'Or winner is their most important player. Everyone knows that, and he's out for the season. When we turned over Man City last season with the most complete performance I've seen probably anybody do. Admittedly, it was only a 1-0, but it was more like a 3 or 4-0. We had, I don't know if you know this, Josh, but it was the most shots that any Pep Guardiola team's ever faced. And the least shots that they've ever created, chances. It was 22-2 to Villa. And we were phenomenal, but there was one key thing. Rodri wasn't there in that midfield. And he's a massive miss. Arsenal have already shown more frailties, and the Arsenal fans are getting on his back, aren't they, old Arteta? So
it's not his fault. It's the refs, mate. It's the refs.
Yeah,
fault.
it's always the ref, isn't it? It's always the ref.
Always is, yeah.
Man United are nowhere. Chelsea are not. I mentioned they've had some good form, and not obviously the Chelsea they were under previous years. And yeah, you got probably Villa and Newcastle, like some good teams around, Spurs, but I actually look at it and think Liverpool, as much as you're not going to say it too loud, I can tell you quietly confident. I think you've got a super chance of winning the league.
Absolutely, yeah. Really? In 2 years. Since we never earned our Emery as well. But I never expected in 2 years we would be in the Champions League. So let's remember, we've come a long way.
Yeah, you have to remember that. I truly believe this next point now, and Josh, you're going to think I'm crazy, right, to say this, but I don't think there's a single manager in the world that could have taken over that Steven Gerrard on the floor team. I know he was a great player, but he was not a great manager. He had the likes of Watkins, Mings, Douglas Luiz on the bench, and the form was terrible. We were 16th or 17th in the league to finish 7th the same season with a new manager, and then to finish
similar team, wasn't it, as well?
Oh, the only changes were Alex Moreno in January window, who's now obviously at Forest, and John Duran, who was a bit part player. So the same team, the same players. That's the biggest, I think, almost indictment of Gerrard as a manager, that what Emery did afterwards with the same players, and then to finish 4th the season after, and to go 15 home games, consecutive winning run, and to be beating everybody. I don't think a single manager could have done that. I don't think Klopp, I don't think Guardiola, I don't think Ancelotti could have taken that team over and got that result out of it. I think that's how much of an unbelievable manager he is. Maybe he's not right for the big teams. Maybe that's not his thing. Maybe he is more of a slightly lower rung, a Sevilla, a Villarreal, and Aston Villa. But he's done an unbelievable job, and I think you'd be a foolish person to rank Villa out of getting a result against Liverpool at Anfield.
And Leon Bailey.
Yeah.
What's about Leon Bailey? Yeah. He's been really inconsistent. He hasn't really hit the form.
Oh, sorry, my dog's going crazy.
Yeah, he's been very good.
He doesn't like. He's annoyed with Leon Bailey as well. No, he's been very, very inconsistent this season, Leon Bailey. Sorry.
Before we finish, I'll read some comments. Can we just read to you before we finish? So Liverpool 12th man, what exactly is a dust-up between John Duran and Unai Emery? I rate him, but he's more of a headache. That he is his talent. So, thank you for your comments this evening.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Emery Duran situation. There was a video the other day, wasn't there, of someone saw from the training ground where Emery was speaking to Duran. He walked off in a bit of a strop. Apparently, Duran did. I think he's a very sort of unpredictable character. I think he's got a situation where he's got that fiery South American personality, and I think he's a young man, and I think he's made some foolish decisions. I think he's done some silly things. He's done some quite vocal flirting with the likes of Chelsea and West Ham on social media, and I think he's still learning his way, but he's got to be patient. He's got to be patient, absolutely.
Let's see what other comments. We'll read two more. It's got Scotty UK. Thanks for tuning in, Scott. Dinya and Matson together on the left for me would be nice. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you could try that.
Matson could play on that left-hand side, I think, definitely. I think he's largely been pretty underused in the league with the form of Luca Digne. But I think Matson has been really good when he's played. And I think if people forget this, he was in the Champions League team of the season last year, and he played in the final for Dortmund. So he's a real quality player. And actually, we've got two really great left-backs at Aston Villa. But yeah, I think maybe you've got that option for him. I actually think, weirdly, with Matson, he's shown more attacking impetus than most of our attacking players outside of maybe Rodgers and Duran.
And he got the Champions League final.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic, yeah.
Remember what United too then. Trigger Douglas over United. So. Yeah, we got United too there. Thanks for tuning in, mate. Big up, guys. Tough match for Villa. But that, yeah, I think that'll do. Well, thank you guys. It's been a great podcast.
Really good. Sorry about my my Great Dane shouting.
No, it's fine.
You mentioned Leon Bailey and he lost it. I think he's so disappointed in his form, basically. So
Yeah, I know. It is to improve, I think.
Yeah, he thinks so too.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this podcast, remember to subscribe if you haven't. And on the way out, if you could smash the like button on this video, give it a share, and give us a good review on audio platforms. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much, Josh and Kevin, for your time.
Thank you for having me. Sorry for being late.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks all. Nice to meet you, Josh, as well.
I'm going to wrap up this episode with Villa forever and up the Villa.